They told me it was a transplant, a procedure to save a life. They told me it was a debt I owed, a price for a sin I never knowingly committed. But as I lay on that cold, sterile table, with the blinding lights of the operating room searing my vision, I knew the truth. This wasn't a medical necessity, it was an excision. They were carving out a piece of my very being, my essence as an omega, to give to another. Oliver, the man whose mark was a permanent brand on the back of my neck, stood by and sanctioned it. He told me it was for Theodore, and as elder Mrs. Charlotte, the matriarch of this gilded cage, smiled a serene, chilling smile, I understood. My opinion was a formality. My body was not my own. They were simply informing me of a decision that had already been made, a verdict passed long before I was brought into this room. I was being dismantled piece by piece for the convenience of others, and this was the final, irreversible cut. It all began 6 years ago, a lifetime ago. A single, catastrophic mistake. I was on a painting tour, a young artist full of foolish dreams and naive optimism. I wandered into the wrong room, a moment of careless curiosity that would unravel my entire existence. Inside, I found Oliver, the formidable alpha heir to the Shin fortune, locked in what was clearly an intimate moment with Theodore. That should have been the end of it. I should have backed away, apologized, and faded back into the anonymity from which I came. But fate, or perhaps the cruel script of this world, had other plans. Later, in an absurd, nightmarish turn of events, I found myself in that same Alpha Euros Trade S room, not as an intruder, but as a captive. I can still feel the phantom sensation of his teeth sinking into my nape, the searing pain of a permanent mark being forged against my will. The air was thick, suffocating with the overpowering scent of an alpha in the throes of a susceptible period. Then, the door burst open. Theodore stood there, flanked by a retinue of household staff, his face a mask of fury and utter disgust. The way he looked at me, it was as if I was something unspeakable, a piece of filth that had contaminated his sacred space. Oliver Trade's grip was like iron, dragging me back even as every instinct screamed for me to flee. I was trapped, branded, and saturated with a scent that was not my own. Theodore, with a delicate hand covering his nose as if to ward off a vile stench, gave a curt order. Rough hands seized me, hauling me from the bed. A bucket of ice-cold water was thrown over me, the shock of it stealing the breath from my lungs. Humiliation was a physical thing, a cold fire that spread through my veins. They had their monumental argument, their drummer playing out over my shivering, broken form. I was a prop in their tragedy. I scurried away from that place like a wounded animal, my painting tour abandoned, my dreams turning to ash in my mouth. I retreated to the only home Euros Trade D ever known, the Welfare Institute, hoping to lick my wounds in obscurity. 3 months later, my world tilted on its axis once more. I collapsed, the world fading to black, and woke up in a hospital bed. The diagnosis was a brutal irony, a severe deficiency of my paired Alpha Euros Trade S pheromones. My body was literally starving for the scent of the man who had violated me. And then, as if summoned by my misery, elder Mrs. Charlotte appeared. She was the one who delivered the final blow. I was pregnant. I, who had grown up without parents, who had yearned for a family with a desperate, childish ache, was carrying a child. It was a cruel twist of fate, but in that moment, it was also a lifeline. This child was mine. This was my chance to build the family I never had. With no other options and a fierce, protective instinct flaring within me, I kept the baby. That decision sealed my fate. Elder Mrs. Charlotte, with the air of a benevolent queen offering a crumb to a peasant, took me into the Shin Familia Eurostrade's ancestral home. It was not an act of kindness, it was an acquisition. Theodore, the wronged party, was sent abroad to heal his wounded pride. Oliver, left behind with me, the living symbol of his transgression, decided to make my life a living hell. He believed I had stolen what was rightfully Theodore Eurostrade's, and he was determined to exact his punishment day by day, year by year. The moment my son, Shiru, was born, he was ripped from my arms and handed over to elder Mrs. Charlotte to be raised. I became Oliver Eurostrade's plaything, a vessel for his frustrations and desires. He would use his power as my alpha to deliberately trigger my heats, watching with cold detachment as my body betrayed me. I would cling to him, my words dissolving into desperate, tearful pleas, reduced to a spectacle of primal need. The permanent mark was a chain around my soul. His pheromones were both my poison and my only antidote. I was trapped in a cycle of dependence and revulsion. I tried to fight it. I tried to escape. But the biological imperative was a merciless warden. To be deprived of his pheromones for too long was to descend into a unique kind of madness. My head would split with a pain that defied description. My body would be racked with nausea. The feverishness would return, a constant, low-grade fire beneath my skin, making the slightest touch an agony. The silk sheets on my bed felt like they were woven from razor blades, scraping against my hypersensitive skin. And beneath it all, the insidious whisper of my omega instincts compelled me to obey him, to crave him, to adore the very source of my suffering. Leaving was not an option. My own biology ensured I could never abandon my tormentor. Shiru was supposed to be my solace, the one pure thing in my desolate life. But he would not let me near him. Raised by the formidable elder Mrs. Charlotte, surrounded by private tutors and nanas, he was a stranger to me. Every moment I wished to spend with him had to be earned, bartered for by pleasing Oliver. If I wanted to see my own son, I had to debase myself first. Shiru absorbed the householder Eurostrade's contempt for me like a sponge. He adored Oliver, pestering his father to read him English storybooks with a perfect accent. When I tried to read to him, my own voice trembling with love and hope, he would wrinkle his nose and complain that my pronunciation was substandard. The paintings I poured my heart into, vibrant worlds I created just for him, were invariably found crumpled in the trash bin within days. Yet a cheap plastic robot that Oliver bought on a whim would be treasured, placed carefully on his pillow every night. The biscuits I baked with my own hands, shapes of stars and moons, were tossed to the family dog right in front of my eyes. The only time he ever used the water gun Eurostrade bought him was to shoot me, the stinging pellets of water feeling like tiny bullets against my skin. To him, I was an embarrassment, a louse in a pristine fur coat, a smudge of mud on a perfectly tailored pair of trousers. He never called me a circumflex Eurostrade. It was always a dismissive hey, and only when prompted by Oliver would he begrudgingly force the word from his lips, the sound of it like gravel. I clung to the hope that it was just a phase, that he was young and easily swayed by the attitudes of those around him. I told myself that when he grew older, he would understand. I waited until he was 5 years old. Half a year ago, the architect of my initial downfall, Theodore, returned from abroad. To celebrate, Oliver lit up the entire city sky with a breathtaking display of fireworks. It was a grand declaration, a public spectacle of his devotion. Theodore became a permanent fixture in the old house, a constant, graceful presence at Oliver Eurostrade's side. Oliver, having seemingly regained his lost treasure, lavished Theodore with a tenderness and affection I had never known. The look in his eyes when he gazed at Theodore was one of profound, soul-deep love. It was a look I had once foolishly dreamed might one day be directed at me. Shirou, predictably, was utterly enchanted by Theodore. In his young eyes, Theodore was everything I was not, from a noble lineage, radiant and generous, with an elegance that permeated his every word and gesture. He was a far more fitting companion for his father. The three of Theodore, Oliver, Theodore, and Shirou formed a perfect, idyllic family unit. They grew closer with each passing day, their laughter echoing through the grand halls, while I became an increasingly awkward and invisible presence in my own home. My very existence was an uncomfortable reminder of a past everyone else was eager to forget. The cruel irony was that my pheromones were an almost perfect match for Oliver's, which meant my physical dependence on him was exceptionally severe. As he spent all his time with Theodore, I was left to starve. More than half a month passed without any contact, without the scent my body so desperately craved. The old sickness began to creep back in, its tendrils wrapping around me. My days became a blur of intermittent fevers and a bone-deep weakness. On a day when I was too ill to even lift my head from the pillow, Oliver was out with Shirou, attending Theodore's latest art exhibition. The servants, taking their cue from their master, treated me with open disdain. My pleas for a simple glass of water were met with deaf ears and cold shoulders. Finally, forcing my trembling limbs to obey, I managed to drag myself out of bed, only to collapse onto the floor in a heap. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic, terrified bird trapped in a cage. A chilling coldness seeped into my hands and feet. In that moment, I genuinely believed I was dying. With my last ounce of strength, I fumbled for my phone, my fingers randomly jabbing at the screen until I somehow managed to dial Oliver's number. I whispered a desperate plea for help into the receiver. His voice, when it came, was a blade of ice. He was busy, he said. He had more important things to do. He couldn't be on standby for my every whim. And then, through the phone, I heard other voices. I heard Shirou, my son, speaking to Theodore. "He's faking it," the small, clear voice said. "He must be jealous of Uncle Lou. Just let him die. I want Uncle Lou to be my new daddy." The world went silent. The frantic beating of my heart slowed to a dull, heavy thud. In that instant, something inside me, the last flickering ember of hope, was extinguished, leaving behind nothing but cold, dead ash. To my surprise, Oliver did eventually come back that day. But the damage was done. The next day, after he had left again, I was just beginning to regain a sliver of my strength when my bedroom door flew open. A small, cannonball-like figure charged in and slammed into me, knocking me back onto the bed. It was Shirou. He clambered onto my waist, his little hands becoming claws and fists. He hit me, he tore at my clothes, he pulled my hair, and he scratched at my face with a feral intensity. All the while, a stream of venomous words poured from his mouth. "Bad thing. Lowly thing. You made Uncle Lou cry." I stared up at the monstrous child on top of me, this creature of rage and hatred, and for the first time, I saw him clearly. I saw the Oliver in his clenched jaw, in the cold fury of his eyes. I realized with a profound and chilling certainty that the blood flowing in his veins was entirely his father Eurostrade's. All the cruelty, all the entitlement, all of it was Oliver's legacy. A cold calm washed over me. I swung my arm and shoved him off. He hadn't Eurostrade T expected it. He tumbled off the bed with a surprised yelp, rolling on the floor like a discarded doll. The shock on his face quickly morphed into pain and outrage. His mouth puckered, and his eyes filled with tears. And suddenly, the servants, who had been conspicuously absent during his assault on me, materialized from the woodwork. They rushed to his side, cooing and fussing, their accusing glances branding me a monster for daring to defend myself. I remained on the bed, watching them with a detached, glacial expression. I made no move to comfort him. Seeing he had an audience, Shire Eurostrade's tears turned to rage. He scrambled to his feet and prepared to launch himself at me again, his small face contorted with hate. "I'll beat you to death," he shrieked. "Beat you to death, you lowly peasant from the countryside. A lowlife who used your body to get ahead. Because of you, I can't even hold my head high with my friends. You hurt me. You're not my daddy." The words were raw, sincere, and utterly devastating. I didn't know who had fed him such poison, or when he had started to internalize it so completely. I had expected to feel a fresh wave of pain, but instead, there was only a strange, hollow tranquility in my chest. He had finally said it all, and in doing so, he had severed the last, frayed thread that connected us. Just as the scene was about to escalate further, Oliver returned. He strode into the room, his presence immediately commanding the space. He scooped Shire into his arms. "Don't be Norky," he said, his tone mild. In his father Eurostrade's arms, Shire Eurostrade's rage dissolved into loud, theatrical sobs. Later, I heard that Theodore, in a gesture of supreme magnanimity, had taken Shire away for a few days to comfort him. I didn't care for how long. Their perfect father-son dynamic, their harmonious world, had nothing to do with me anymore. Not long after that incident, Theodore fell ill. It was a strange, sudden sickness, Euro's glandular degeneration, a rare and difficult condition to treat. Elder Mrs. Charlotte escorted me to the hospital. The scene that greeted me was one of perfect, staged tragedy. Theodore lay wan and fragile in the hospital bed, his hand clutched tightly in Oliver Eurostrade's. He wept piteously, worrying about his future inability to bear children. Shire stood by the bed, his arms wrapped around Theodore Eurostrade's waist, crying in sympathy. It was into this maudlin tableau that Oliver dropped his bombshell. He wanted to transplant my glands into Theodore. I looked at elder Mrs. Charlotte, who was still smiling that serene, placid smile, and I knew this was not our discussion. I calmly, methodically listed the consequences of such a procedure for Oliver. The loss of my glands would lead to over a dozen lifelong sequelae. The cliff-like drop in my hormone levels could drive me insane. I would become frail, my body rapidly aging, and I would be dependent on medication for the rest of my short life. I would be lucky to see the age of 50. Oliver had his reply ready, as if he had rehearsed it. "This is what you owe Theodore." I wasn't surprised. Of course he would think that. To him, a man of immense wealth and power, a top-tier alpha who was handsome, upright, and from a dazzling background, my very existence was a debt. The fact that he had bound my hands, pressed me against a door, and taken me with such brutal force that was irrelevant. To have been touched by him, even in violence, was a privilege for which I apparently owed the world. "Okay," I said. I agreed. What choice did I have? They weren't asking, they were telling. And besides, a part of me, a weary, broken part, was tired of this damn permanent mark. I was tired of the chain, tired of the craving, tired of being a slave to my own biology. Oliver was taken aback by my easy compliance. The speech he had clearly prepared died on his lips. His long eyelashes fluttered in confusion. For a moment, his handsome, sculptural face was a mask of thought. He even condescended to offer an explanation, a justification. "It's not what you think between Theodore and me," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I promised I would take care of him until he found his own alpha. You already have Shirou. Theodore needs this gland. I will compensate you. Medical technology is so advanced now, the impact won't be that great." He sounded sincere. He even patted my hand. That very night, he personally sent me to the operating room. The universe has a cruel sense of humor. The moment my gland was removed, the moment I was irrevocably altered, news arrived from the lab. Theodore Eurostrade's illness had been a misdiagnosis. In the hazy hours after the surgery, as the anesthesia slowly wore off, my mind churned. I tried to make sense of the nonsensical, illogical cruelty of my life. And then, a voice, clear and distinct, echoed not in my ears, but in my mind. A system. It explained everything. The world I inhabited was a piece of fiction, a dual male lead angst novel. I was an anomaly, an unlucky soul who had accidentally transmigrated into a fetus and had been forgotten by the narrative's architects. My entire existence was designed for one purpose: to suffer, to be abused. The system, as a form of apology for its oversight, offered me a choice. It could use its points to restore my health, or it could send me away from this world entirely. "Send me away," I said, without a moment's hesitation. "Are you sure, host?" the system asked. It explained that my body was native to this world. If my soul detached, the shell left behind on the hospital bed would be nothing more than a breathing automaton. It would gradually weaken and then, inevitably, die. The system suggested I stay a little longer, to say a proper goodbye. I opened my eyes, my consciousness still dazed. Shirou was standing by my bed. In his small hand, he held a syringe. I watched, as if in a dream, as he carefully, secretly injected a bubble of air into my Roman IV tube. He couldn't wait. He was making room for his new daddy. It was decided. Let Theodore have them. "System," I asked, "when can I leave?" "Now," it replied. My soul lifted, a weightless, painless separation. For the first time, I could see myself from the outside. The figure on the bed was a pale, fragile Omega, emaciated and frail, with dark circles bruising the skin under his eyes and lips that were chapped and bloodless. Even in this withered state, you could see the faint echo of his original beauty, like a mountain plum blossom freezing in a winter storm. He was the perfect picture of a tragic victim. I let him go. I gave him euros and myself euros the release of a final, complete withering, hoping that wherever we ended up next, we might finally encounter spring. "It's time to go, host." Yes, I was pulled into a swirling, black vortex. As my consciousness began to fray at the edges, one last scene from the world I was leaving behind played out before me. Oliver was in the corridor outside my room, talking to the surgeon who had operated on me. The dim hospital lighting bleached their forms, making them look like characters in an old, black and white film, distant and unreal. The doctor looked troubled. "Removing a gland is like uprooting a tree," he said. "Once the roots are torn, you can't just put it back in the ground and expect it to live. It will wither and die." A flicker of something that might have been guilt crossed Oliver's face. Let's wait until he wakes up, he murmured. A bitter laugh threatened to escape me, but it didn't matter anymore. Then, in that final vision, Oliver suddenly turned his head, his eyes seeming to lock onto my incorporeal form. As if sensing my departure, he called out my name, Henry. As the sound of his voice faded, the world dissolved into fine powder, and I sank into a profound and welcoming darkness. I don't know how long I was adrift, but I eventually fought my way back to consciousness. I found myself lying in a sparsely decorated apartment. A hand rested on my lower abdomen. I turned my head and saw a naked man sleeping beside me. He was broad-shouldered and well-built, but his face had a delicate, almost feminine beauty. His skin was fair, his eyelashes long and thick, and a single, perfect mole sat just beneath his eye, like a teardrop. I had no idea who he was. He stirred, rubbing his eyes and offering me an innocent, sleepy smile. "Good morning." The blanket slipped from his shoulders, revealing a canvas of marks and hickeys covering his torso. Shock jolted me awake. I shot out of bed and fled to the bathroom. "System, what is going on?" I started to say, but the words caught in my throat. I looked up and saw my reflection in the mirror. It was my original face. The features were similar to the ones I'd had in that other world, but without the influence of a second gender. I was just a young man with a delicate appearance. My frame wasn't slender, my skin was even a little rough. And then, it all came flooding back. My real life. I was a painter whose parents had died when I was young. I had been diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. The day I realized the muscles in my fingers were beginning to atrophy. When I could no longer hold a paintbrush steady, I made a series of rash decisions. I used my life savings to buy this apartment, a place I had always dreamed of but never thought I could afford. I went on a lavish trip, burning through the rest of my money. Then I came home, wrote my will, and went to a bar. Realizing I had lived my entire life without any real intimacy, I got thoroughly drunk, found the most handsome man in the place, and brought him home. In reality, nothing had happened that night. I was too drunk. All I'd done was scribble nonsense on his skin with a marker. When I sobered up in the middle of the night, filled with shame and despair, I left a bank card on the table as compensation for his trouble. And then I attempted to end my life with a combination of beer and 200 sleeping pills. Obviously, I failed. And that was when the system had appeared, offering me a deal of complete transmigration tasks in exchange for a second chance at life. "Host, I'm here. What did you want to ask?" The system's voice chimed in my head. "My illness Euros," I whispered. "It's cured." I looked down at my hands. They were steady, warm, and tinged with a healthy pink. They were the hands of an artist ready to create. A hot wetness filled my eyes. I crept out of the bathroom, intent on getting rid of the man in my bed. After Oliver, I had no desire for any kind of intimate relationship, physical or otherwise. But as I entered the room, he was already dressed. "If you're okay, I'll be going," he said simply. I was stunned. "What?" "I took care of you all night while you were drunk," he explained. "I need to go home and catch up on some sleep." Was that all? His eyes were clear, without a hint of deceit. A wave of shame washed over me for my cynical assumptions. As he was about to leave, he pointed to a painting hanging on my living room wall, Euros, studies of a cactus. "Is this for sale?" he asked. "Lucas would love it. I'd like to take it back for her." Lucas. The name sparked a memory. I finally placed him. He was Daniel, the previous owner of this very apartment. I'd heard he was a single father raising his child, Lucas. He now lived in the adjacent building. He was my neighbor. In the haze of my self-destructive spiral, I had paid no attention to the people around me. I felt a flush of embarrassment, quickly followed by relief that I hadn't asked his name last night. I took the painting off the wall and handed it to him. "It's a gift," I said sincerely. "Thank you for last night. I owe you one. If you ever need anything, just let me know." He took me at my word immediately. "Can I ask you a favor then?" he asked, and I paused. He explained he was looking for an art tutor for Lucas and, since I lived so close, wondered if she could take lessons with me. My own words had trapped me. The thought of dealing with a child sent a shiver of anxiety through me, and I hesitated. Seeing my reluctance, Daniele Eurostrade's shoulders slumped. His eyelashes drooped, and he looked genuinely disappointed. "Lucas isn't the easiest to teach," he admitted. "No one wants to take her on. I wouldn't trouble you otherwise." I found I couldn't say no. I agreed. In my mind, the system made a dry comment. I really should recruit him as a strategist. Then it said its farewells. My body was recovered, and it had new hosts to guide. Before it vanished, it asked if I wanted real-time updates on the Shin family. I refused. I wanted nothing to do with them. My new life had begun. I started the slow process of reacclimating to the world that was rightfully mine. I contacted old friends and professors, returned to my familiar art studio to retrain my healed hands, and found dealers to sell my work. My pre-suicide spending spree had left my bank account empty. The rest of my time was spent teaching Lucas. She was, as Daniel had warned, a difficult student. She was fiercely opinionated and possessed very little natural artistic talent. I tried to teach her about dots, lines, and planes. She insisted on painting nothing but balls and turtles. I decided not to fight it. I sat with her, drawing eggs and tree branches, weaving in little bits of art theory whenever I could. She grew to like me a great deal. Daniel would often sit quietly in the room while we worked, sketching in his own notepad. Like his daughter, he only drew what he wanted to draw, were Euro's mostly human faces, all of them charmingly crooked. Sometimes, seeing his clumsy, scrawling lines, I couldn't help but step in and correct his posture, showing him how to hold the pencil. The more I taught him, the worse his drawings became. When I critiqued his work, he would just smile at me, a shy, bashful grin. Slowly I became familiar with them, and they with me. Lucas started to treat me with an easy affection, throwing herself onto my lap and looking up at me with her big, round eyes. "You paint so well. Let me just watch you paint." She Eurostrade plead, and I could almost imagine a happy dog's tail wagging behind her. I Eurostrade gently pushed the brush back into her hand, and she Eurostrade returned to her turtles with a theatrical sigh. At these moments, Daniel would appear with a plate of cut fruit, scolding Lucas for being lazy while feeding her a piece of apple, occasionally offering one to me as well. The three of us in that quiet room, a child or Eurostrade's cheerful chatter filling the space, began to patch up some unknown, hollow part of me. On our 20th lesson, a torrential rainstorm hit the city. Lucas was late. I was about to assume they weren't coming when a knock sounded at the door. I opened it to find Daniel, soaked to the skin. He was tall and lean, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. His rain-plastered shirt clung to his chest, hinting at the firm muscle beneath. The cold had made his face paler than usual, and his long eyelashes were beaded with rainwater. The corners of his eyes, which naturally drooped slightly, were reddened by the chill, making the mole beneath his eye seem even more alluring. He looked down at me and said my name, Henry. For a wild second, I wanted to slam the door in his face. "What is it?" I asked, my ears burning. I didn't know where to look. Looking up felt too forward, looking down felt even more so. "I forgot my umbrella, euros, and my keys," he said, his voice hoarse with a developing cold. "The keys are with Lucas. She's at her grandmother's. Until she gets back, could I possibly borrow your bathroom for a shower?" My instincts screamed that letting him in was a bad idea, but I only hesitated for a moment before he hugged himself and let out a massive sneeze. I sighed and stepped aside. He murmured apologies and hurried into the bathroom, leaving a trail of water behind him. The sound of the shower started. I stood in the living room, the atmosphere feeling charged and strange. I went to my bedroom to find him some dry clothes. I had just found a pair of sweatpants that might fit when I heard a loud thud from the bathroom, followed by silence. Fear seized me. I rushed to the bathroom and threw open the door. He was lying on his back on the floor, unconscious. His body was flushed a deep crimson. His broad shoulders, narrow waist, and long legs were on full display. I hurried to help him up. The moment my hands touched his chest, I felt the searing heat of a high fever. My body jolted. A suspicious thought crossed my mind. Was he trying to seduce me? It seemed too copyright D, too ambiguous. The entire weight of his body leaned against me as I helped him up. Shaking off my wild thoughts, I hastily wrapped a towel around him, half-carried him to the sofa, and pulled out my phone to call for an ambulance. "Don't," he mumbled, his hand weakly grabbing my wrist. His eyes were hazy with fever as he pulled me down. His muscular chest pressed against mine, and my body went rigid, my heartbeat spiraling out of control. "Cold," he whispered, hugging me close. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, his stubble rubbing against my skin and sending shivers down my spine. He looked up, his hot breath ghosting across my lips. Just as his face drew closer, a small voice called out from the hallway. "Daniel!" It was Lucas. The spell was broken. I pushed Daniel away and, my ears still burning, went to open the door. Lucas burst in, carrying keys and a change of clothes. "Daniel, you didn't bring your keys? Did you leave your brain at home too? You should have waited for me. What if you caught a cold?" she scolded passionately. Daniel remained on the sofa in the exact position euros trade D pushed him into, unresponsive. Something was wrong. I reached out and touched his forehead. It was burning. He was genuinely sick. As a result, they both ended up staying at my place. I gave Daniel medicine, cooked porridge for Lucas, and, fearing the cold was contagious, put them in separate rooms euros the master bedroom and the guest room. I even told Lucas a bedtime story at her request. As I was turning off her light, she scrambled up and planted a kiss on my cheek. "Henry, good night." For some reason, I froze. I couldn't manage a smile. I couldn't manage any expression at all. Lucas's face fell, her expression turning to one of alarm. It was only then that I realized my eyes were welling with tears. "Henry, what's wrong?" she whispered. "I'm sorry. Are you really sad? You are euros. You're not going to try to kill yourself again, are you?" I was shocked she would say such a thing. I wiped my eyes and asked her what she meant. And then she confessed. Daniel had noticed me sitting on my balcony for days on end, just staring into space. He thought I seemed to be in a bad state and had been watching over me. He had followed me to the bar that night because he Eurostrayed seen me trying to cut my wrists with a fruit knife earlier. He told Lucas I needed more human connection. I stared at her, astonished. Lucas, misunderstanding my silence, nervously tugged at her shirt. "Don't be scared," she said. "We're not bad people." A wave of emotion so powerful it almost knocked me over washed through me. "No," I said, my voice thick. "I want to thank you. I had been hurt, violated, and left to die when I was gravely ill, and not a single person who should have cared had lifted a finger. It was these strangers, this kind man and his quirky daughter, who had shown me more genuine concern in a few short weeks than I had received in the last 6 years. After Lucas was asleep, I walked back to my bedroom and sat by the bed, looking at Daniel's feverish, unconscious form. I thought of my earlier suspicion that he was trying to seduce me, and a hot flush of shame spread through me. So many thoughts and feelings were swirling inside me, I didn't know where to begin to sort them out. By the time I came back to myself, my cheeks were wet with tears. From that day on, they became my new family. We went on picnics, visited art exhibitions, and I painted portraits for them. At one exhibition, I ran into an old professor who introduced me to several influential figures in the art world. With their guidance and encouragement, I began to prepare for my first solo exhibition. My life, once a stagnant, murky pond, was now a clear, gurgling stream. Everything was getting better. Until the day I heard a knock on my door. I opened it and was immediately pulled into a tight embrace. Over the person's shoulder, I saw him, Shiru. I was momentarily stunned. The man holding me, Henry, pressed his nose against my neck, a habitual gesture to inhale my scent. He froze. The feel of my body was wrong. The familiar Omega scent was gone. It was Oliver. He released me and took 2 steps back, his eyes scanning me from head to toe. I did the same to him. He had lost weight. His expensive suit hung loosely on his frame. His cheeks were hollowed, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. His once sharp, piercing gaze was dull and tired. Without the distorting lens of pheromones, I realized he wasn't as outstandingly handsome as I'd remembered. Shiru stood behind him, his face turned away in a familiar, sullen pout, clearly waiting for me to coax him out of his mood. He clutched a brightly wrapped gift, the paper already torn in several places. And in that moment, I had a startling realization I hadn't thought about them. Not once. The all-consuming love and hate Eurostrayed felt in the Shin family home felt like a memory from someone else's life. They were standing right in front of me, and I felt nothing. Perhaps the change in me was so profound that Oliver was hesitant. He studied my face, then tentatively called my name. "Henny, you have the wrong person," I said flatly, and slammed the door in his face. I stood there, trying to process how they could have possibly found me. I called out to the system in my mind, but there was no response. Daniel and Lucas were in the living room, waiting for me to join them for dinner. Seeing me frozen by the door, Daniel approached, a bowl in his hand. "Henny, who was that?" "I don't know. Don't worry about it." As soon as the words left my mouth, the knocking began again, more urgent this time, more insistent. Daniel looked from me to the door, then reached out and opened it himself. Oliver was standing closer this time, a strained smile on his face. The moment he saw Daniel, his expression curdled. "Who is he?" he demanded, his eyes fixed on me. I frowned and said nothing. I didn't owe him an explanation. Oliver's gaze dropped to the bowl of food in Daniel's hand, and a flash of rage lit his eyes. I've gone to such incredible trouble to find you, and you've already found a new man. Shiru peered around his father and saw me standing near Daniel. Father, he blurted out, his voice filled with a childish note of betrayal. The implications in their words were so thick that Daniel nearly dropped his bowl. Just then, Lucas rushed over from the living room, poking her head out from between us. What father? I patted her head, feeling helpless. I don't know them. Shiru stamped his foot. You gave birth to me, he yelled. How could a man possibly give birth to a child? Lucas shot back. I started to close the door again. You really have the wrong people. Please look elsewhere. Oliver lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Henry, I can explain. Daniel knocked his hand away. Sir, please control yourself. Oliver, ever possessed of a short temper, grabbed Daniel by the collar. Daniel stood his ground, his eyes hard and unyielding. Lucas let out a scream, launched herself at Oliver, and bit his leg. Shiru threw down his gift and tried to push Lucas away, but she grabbed a handful of his hair and pulled. The situation was spiraling into chaos. Acting on pure instinct, I kicked the back of Oliver Eurostrade's knee. He buckled, falling to his knees with a grunt of pain. In one smooth motion, I pulled Daniel back, scooped up Lucas, and slammed the door shut. Henry, Oliver's furious roar came from the other side. What are you doing? Father! Shiru was yelling now, too. I told you, I shouted back. My patience gone. You have the wrong person. Go away. I'm not leaving until you open this door, he bellowed. Fine, I said, pulling out my phone and dialing the police. Perhaps the world of abusive romance novels doesn't have a police force. Oliver was utterly dumbfounded when two officers with large-brimmed hats arrived to escort him away. As they led him off, he shot Daniel a venomous glare. Watch yourself, he snarled. Shiru, scared into silence, gave me one last hateful look before running after his father with tears in his eyes. After they were gone, I turned to send Daniel and Lucas home, only to find them exchanging meaningful glances. I sighed. This was all too complicated. I was afraid this would ruin the simple, peaceful friendship we had built. To my surprise, they seemed to come to a silent agreement. Henry, take me home, Lucas said, throwing her arms around my waist as if nothing had happened. I grabbed my keys, took her hand, and the three of us walked out together. It was only a 3-minute walk from my building to theirs. Daniel was unchanged, chatting about art classes as if we hadn't just had a dramatic confrontation on my doorstep. Lucas, however, was more direct. As soon as we reached their building, she tugged on my arm. Henry, that kid really is your son, isn't he? I think he looks a lot like you. He looks like me. I twitched a smile. In the Shin family, everyone, from elder Mrs. Charlotte to the lowest servant, always said that Shiru was the spitting image of Oliver, as if repeating it enough would erase my genetic contribution. Shiru himself was proud of the resemblance. No one had ever said he looked like me. Lost in thought, I walked straight into Daniela Eurostrade's back. He had stopped. He was looking at me, his dark eyes filled with 1,000 unspoken words. I sighed, knowing I had to explain. You're probably not going to believe this, I began. Do you know about ABICO, time travel, systems? I tried to explain the impossible as concisely as I could. When I finished, Lucas Eurostrade's mouth was hanging open wide enough to fit an egg inside. Daniel, however, was remarkably calm. He seemed to accept it all without question. "So, you're not in the same body now," he said, clarifying. "You could say that. Does that mean you could just think of all that as a bad dream?" he suggested gently. "I've had some terrifying dreams, too. I once dreamed I jumped off a cliff and was smashed to pieces. But when I woke up, I was fine. I even grew taller." His way of comforting people was Yoro's unique. But it worked. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I clapped him on the shoulder. "Be careful for the next few days," I warned. "Oliver thinks you're my new lover. He might try to cause trouble for you." Daniel took my hand from his shoulder, his fingers lacing lightly with mine. He looked at me, his eyes like pools of ink reflecting the moonlight. "He wasn't mistaken," he said softly. "What? I am his rival in love." The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was completely dumbstruck. "War Euros, you like me?" "Yes," he said. "Buta Euros, aren't you straight? I thought you were a straight man. I tried to tempt you so many times, but you never reacted." A faint smile touched his lips. "Even on the night you brought me home from the bar, all you did was mumble and draw little red beans all over me with a marker." The moonlight played in the shadows of the trees. The world was quiet except for the chirping of insects and the rustle of leaves in the wind. And in the stillness, I could hear the steady, strong beat of a heart in someone's chest. I looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and realized he was breathtakingly beautiful. The gentle curve of his eyes, the alluring mole like a fallen tear, the way the moonlight traced a path from the bridge of his nose to his thin lips. I felt a stirring inside me. A warmth that had nothing to do with pheromones or biological imperatives. It was real, and because it was real, I wanted to protect it. But he had a daughter. He was a package deal, and I wasn't sure I was ready for that. I gently pulled my hand from his. "I can't," I said. "I don't know if what I'm feeling for you is real, or just a transference from everything I've been through." The light in his eyes dimmed. The corners of his mouth drooped. "It's my fault," he said in a low voice, his eyelashes casting long shadows on his cheeks. "I chose the wrong moment. I just Euros couldn't control myself." Into the heavy silence between us, a third voice piped up. Lucas, who we had both forgotten, spoke. "Oh, come on, Henry. Please give my uncle a chance. He's never chased anyone before. He's been racking his brain every single day trying to figure out how to get close to you." "Uncle?" I said, confused. "My parents are gone," Lucas said, her tone deliberately casual. "It was my uncle who raised me." The quiet courage in her words, the depth of the bond between them laid bare, struck me to my very core. So, here I am, standing at a crossroads I never imagined. Behind me is a past of ashes and pain, a world that tried to erase me. And in front of me is a man with kind eyes and a crooked smile, and a fierce little girl who calls him uncle. A chance for a family that isn't built on obligation or biology, but on something quieter, gentler, and infinitely more real. A chance to finally find my spring. What do you think? Did I make the right decision to push Daniel away for now, or should I have taken that leap of faith? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more.